I'm assuming that this video presumes that you've already read the novels because there will be spoilers. But these novels, written by Sanda Mikoto and illustrated by Mineji Sakamoto, tell the story of someone that I didn't particularly have any interest in Fate Zero, Waver Velvet. I mean, why would you when you have Emiya, who's taking out mages left and right? But it's way more interesting than I think another story with Emiya would be. Because everyone knows Emiya is strong and cool, right? But Waver in the Fourth Holy Grail War was weak and useless, which is why he pretty much got Iskander killed, even though Iskander likely had the ability to win the war. But because Waver Velvet, with his inferior genetics for magecraft and his naivety of how the war would go, survived, but he didn't win. The book's showing how the war changed him afterwards. The books take place 10 years after that event. He's a completely changed man after the war. And throughout the books you can see how that the war has left scars on him and changed his personality compared to what it used to be. Because in the Fate world, if you aren't born with good magical circuits, which is like an organ for mages, you're useless. You have no worth whatsoever. And he was born with some of the worst circuits you could probably ever be born with. And so he has no talent for magic whatsoever. And so the only way that he could ever hope to combat that was with knowledge, which is what he did. And so he has more magical knowledge than most other mages exist, and he can remember all of it. And so he's able to dissect other mages' magecraft. Even if it's powerful, he's able to explain the underlying principles of how it works, which pretty much ruins the value of that magic, which is why a lot of people hate him. But they also fear him as well because of his ability to do that. And so the story is about him trying to come to grips with the fact that he wants to see his king again, who he pledged his life to. The magic system in Fate is extremely interesting, and you could write dozens of books just on the different types of magic that you could create with the system that exists, and how the different magics come about from different religion and beliefs and culture and society. And so you can get all different types of really interesting, diverse magic, which I think is way more interesting than just, I'm a mage, I can use this spell type of deal. The characters in the books are all pretty interesting and more complex than just an archetype or this is my shtick type of characterization. Even though there is some comedy, overall the books are pretty serious in my opinion, which I like. It's like a Sherlock Holmes in the Fate universe, basically. And Sherlock Holmes also exists in the Fate universe canonically. The story is mostly about how Waver has to navigate being talentless in a society, in a world in which all that matters is your talent. And when everyone around him has so much more talent than himself, and how realistically, if he had talent along with the knowledge that he possesses, he probably would be one of the greatest mages that has ever been born in the modern age. But that's just not the case. And so for him, he has to suffer with being inferior to those around him, but also being able to teach better than everyone else around him. Gray is also a very interesting and complex character that does change throughout the series as it goes on. And she becomes less afraid of being rejected by Waver as he is her teacher, even though she's not a mage. And Rhines, the sister of Waver, and Rhines, who is the heir to the El-Melloi family, of which Waver was adopted into as the temporary lord. Even though she has a bad personality, she knows that there's very few people she can actually trust in the world, and her brother and Gray are two of those people. And so in some ways the books are a way to show that how even though everyone looks down on Waver as an inferior mage, he's able to prove his worth simply by the fact that he's able to understand magic better than all of the other mages. Regardless of how talented the other mages are, they aren't able to understand magic in the same capacity that Waver is. And so in that small way, at least, he's able to take revenge on the fact that they have talent and he doesn't, even if he's not purposely trying to be revengeful about it. When he breaks down their magic and destroys their soul, which is one of the reasons that he has prominence in the clock tower in the first place. And the dynamic between Waver dealing with the magecraft mysteries and Rhines dealing with the political intrigue of how she has to navigate and not be obliterated by the other families of the clock tower is very interesting and fun to watch, as both of the siblings are good at very different things. So overall, I would definitely read the books if you haven't already. There's also a sequel that's been written for the past 4 years, so because I find his story much more interesting and human because of the fact that there's a lot of people who can relate to the fact that they weren't born with the talent to do what they want to do in life, or even the means to do what they want to do in life. And so for him to struggle, even though he knows that his dream is not possible, for him to continue to struggle against that and hope that somehow he can make his dream come true, I think is very relatable and human in a way that I find much more interesting than if the main character was already just powerful and had the knowledge that he has.